Here are the top stories for today, August 4, 2021. The Philippines gets 3 million doses of Moderna donated by the United States. These jabs will be allotted to indigents as the country doubles its efforts to speed up vaccination against COVID-19. No need to worry, Malacanang allays fears of elderly persons hesitating to get the COVID-19 jab, saying getting vaccinated will increase their chances of surviving the pandemic. Aid on the way. The government will shell out some 13 billion pesos from the savings of agencies and offices for the grant of financial aid to some 10.7 million Metro Manila residents to be affected by the enhanced community quarantine. And the hope for more medals for the country remains alive as Marcial and Paalam both advance to the semifinals of their respective divisions in the Tokyo Olympics. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. A large portion of the newly delivered Moderna vaccines will be dedicated to the indigent Filipinos. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the bulk of the 3 million doses of U.S.-donated Moderna vaccine will be deployed in Metro Manila, Cavite, Laguna, Pampanga, Batangas, Rizal, Bulacan, Metro Davao, and Metro Cebu. Other areas with a high number of COVID-19 cases will also get a huge volume of the newly delivered vaccine. These are the Ilocos region, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Western Visayas, and other parts of Visayas and Mindanao like Gingoog City and Cagayan de Oro City. Galvez says senior citizens and persons with comorbidities remain a priority in the vaccination drive to reduce hospitalization and fatality rates among these vulnerable sectors. Meanwhile, the vaccine czar says he is optimistic that the Philippines will be able to surpass the challenges brought by the more transmissible Delta variant as long as vaccines continue to arrive. He said there has been a significant increase in the daily vaccination rate. The Philippines has so far administered almost 21 million doses nationwide. Vaccine hesitancy remains one of the factors that hinder senior citizens from getting jabbed. However, the government says vaccination remains among effective ways to deal with the ongoing health crisis. Marita Mawahe tells us how the government is doing in addressing vaccine hesitancy among the elders.
The government is all out in providing the necessary information about the advantages of getting vaccinated, especially among those who belong in the A2 category or the elderly. Reports show that the number of vaccinated senior citizens barely increased due to vaccine hesitancy. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said some senior citizens had doubts over the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines and were concerned over the risk of contracting the disease while outside.
Nang una, may mga lolo-lola na mas gustong bigyan ng prioridad yung mga mas bata. Pangalawa, yung mga lolo-lola natatakot na pumunta dun sa mga vaccination centers, no, dahil baka dun pa sila mahawa, no. At saka pangatlo, may mga lolo-lola na siyempre nagiging concerned din sa safety. Mag-mask at mag-face shield lamang at dumistansya at mababawasan naman po yung risk kung tayo po magpapabakuna.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health says senior citizens are allowed to walk in at the vaccination sites during the ECQ period. The local government units are urged to provide a special lane for them for a faster inoculation process. The Health Department also wants the LGUs to provide transportation services both for vaccine recipients and the vaccination workforce. In Negros Oriental, workers who would tag along an elderly would be prioritized for inoculation. Assistant Provincial Health Officer Dr. Leland Estacion said the proposed strategy would allow senior citizens to walk in if they are accompanied by A4 individuals at the vaccination centers. The province targets to vaccinate 133,000 senior citizens. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, says ayuda or financial assistance payout in Metro Manila will be distributed personally during the implementation of the enhanced community quarantine status. DSWD spokesperson Irene Dumlao said local government units can manually distribute the financial assistance due to the limited time provided. Metro Manila is placed under ECQ from August 6 to 20. Malacanang earlier said a total of 13.1 billion pesos worth of cash assistance will be distributed to around 10.7 million Metro Manila residents. The funds will be sourced from the savings of all government agencies. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said qualified beneficiaries will receive 1,000 pesos per person or a maximum of 4,000 pesos per family. Meanwhile, residents of Cagayan de Oro City and Ginoog City will receive their cash aid this week. Both cities have been under ECQ since July 16. Each resident can also receive 1,000 up to 4,000 pesos per family. The current public transport supply and capacity will be retained in Metro Manila during the imposition of the enhanced community quarantine. Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade said the latest omnibus guidelines approved by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases have allowed the continued operation of public transportation at a certain capacity. Only authorized persons outside of residence as identified by the IATF will be accommodated by public transport services. Public transportation and all other modes of transportation should observe the prescribed physical distancing and sanitary measures. Public utility vehicles such as buses and jeepneys are allowed to operate at 50% capacity on a one-seat apart setup. Standing passengers are not allowed and only one passenger will be allowed at the driver's row. For tricycles, passenger load shall not exceed one passenger in the sidecar. All trains would have transport marshals to enforce health protocols and to identify abhors. Meanwhile, MRT3, LRT2, and the Philippine National Railways offer free rides to all COVID-19 vaccinated passengers during ECQ. Vaccinated passengers at seaports and airports will also get freebies such as free coffee, water, and snacks. In addition, the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, or PITX, has also agreed to waive the terminal fees. Malacanang is hopeful that Metro Manila's ECQ status from August 6 to 20 will be the last one. The shift to the strictest ECQ aims to prevent the spread of the Delta COVID-19 variant in the region. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said the more Filipinos get vaccinated against COVID-19, the higher chance for the decline in the number of active cases.
Inaasahan po natin na bagamat ang numero ay tataas pa, bagamat tumataas din ang ating mga nababakunahan na, yung mga nangyayari sa mga bansa gaya ng Israel at Estados Unidos ay mangyayari rin dito. Maski tumaas pa ang numero, hindi na po sila nagkakasakit ng seryoso o hindi na namamatay.
Meanwhile, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said there will be closer coordination between the local government units and the police force once the ECQ status starts. He said Metro Manila mayors requested for more police personnel to be deployed in vaccination sites, cash aid distribution points, and along the borders to enforce the public health standards and community quarantine protocols. Beginning on Friday, quarantine control points at the border of Metro Manila and neighboring provinces will be established, while curfew hours from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. will be implemented. The Department of the Interior and Local Government condemned the CPP-NPA-NDF for the ambush in Samar of a convoy of local health workers on their way to Leyte to COVID-19 vaccines last week. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año slammed the communist movement's insensitivity, callousness, and opportunism, saying the attack only proves that they are enemies of the state who do not have any concern for the people. The Calbayog City Healthcare Office staff members, escorted by police, were on their way to the DOH Regional Office 8 in Palo, Leyte, when they were suddenly attacked by the communist terrorists along the Maharlika Highway last July 27. To ensure the smooth and efficient rollout of the vaccines in the communities, the DILG Secretary directed the PNP to assign additional personnel to COVID-19 vaccination operations. DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya also called on the public to immediately report sightings of CTGs in their localities to local authorities. In his talk to the people aired Monday night, President Rodrigo Duterte renewed his call to communist insurgents to surrender. Duterte told members of the CPP-NPA to abandon their meaningless ideology, as all they do now is kill people. He reiterated that communist guerrillas who will surrender to authorities will be granted free housing and financial assistance. He also reassured them of a better life once they reintegrate into mainstream society. Duterte also warned that government troops will continue to run after communist rebels who will refuse to heed his call. With only 10 months left in his term, President Rodrigo Duterte said it was the Filipino nation and not him or his family who benefited from his administration's drug war. Duterte reacted during his pre-recorded talk to the people on Monday night to the human rights group's criticisms of the aggressive crackdown on illegal drugs. He said even if the critics' allegations of human rights violations linked to the drug war were true, Filipinos were still able to reap from its gains. He commended the Philippine National Police, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, the Philippine Army, and the intelligence community for confiscating billions worth of illegal drugs. Duterte's statements came after 11 American senators, led by Senator Edward Markey, called the attention of U.S. President Joe Biden over their concerns about the human rights situation in the Philippines under the current administration. Still to come, more medals on the way as two Filipino pugs will see action in the semifinals of their divisions in the Tokyo Olympics. And the use of body cameras and alternative recording devices in police operations is now mandatory. Details ahead. This is the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. Filipino pugs Carlo Paalam and Marcial will attempt to advance to the gold medal round of the boxing competitions of the ongoing Tokyo Olympics. Carlo Paalam is to square off with Ryomei Tanaka of Japan in the semifinals of the men's flyweight competitions tomorrow, August 5. Yesterday, the 23-year-old Paalam ousted defending Olympic champion Shako Hobidin Zoirov of Uzbekistan. 20 minutes after the Paalam versus Tanaka seto, Marcial is to trade punches with Alexander Kizniak of Ukraine in the semis of the men's middleweight contests. The 25-year-old Marcial is entering the fight with 2 stoppage wins in the preliminaries and the quarterfinals. Both Marcial and Paalam are already assured of the bronze medals. Team Philippines has so far won 1 gold, courtesy of weightlifter Heidelin Diaz, and 1 silver, earned by Nesty Petesio in women's boxing. With the sure bronzes of Paalam and Marcial, the would-be at least 4-medal result is the biggest Olympic medal haul of the Philippines. Hawaii has included the Philippines in its Safe Travels program as a trusted testing partner. The Department of Foreign Affairs said this allows Philippine Airlines passengers traveling from Manila to Honolulu to bypass the state's mandatory 10-day quarantine. They must first present a negative RT-PCR test taken at a PAL-accredited laboratory 72 hours before departure from the Philippines. State of Hawaii Governor David Ige said they look forward to restarting and increasing international travel with the Philippines in recognition of the large Filipino community, which calls Hawaii home. In a meeting with Philippine Consul General Joselito Jimeno, Ige said Hawaii will focus on increasing its vaccination rate as it prepares for in-person learning as the new school year starts on August 3. Jimeno meanwhile noted that both the consulate and the Filipino community in Hawaii have been proactive in supporting the state's vaccination efforts. Health authorities in Visayas and Mindanao have intensified prevention and health care measures amid the entry of COVID-19 variants of concern, including the highly transmissible Delta variant. Laid Kabagani has the story.
Western Visayas has recorded 38 cases of variants of concern and 4 cases of a variant under alert for monitoring, as per result of the whole genome sequencing released by the UP Philippine Genome Center on July 28. The Alpha variant cases were from Antique, Iloilo City, Iloilo Province, Capiz, and Negros Occidental. The Beta variant cases were from Iloilo and Iloilo City, Capiz, Aklan, Antique, and Negros Occidental. The Theta positive were in the cities of Bacolod and Iloilo and the provinces of Guimaras and Iloilo. As of Tuesday, Western Visayas recorded 960 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the provincial and city governments of Iloilo have strengthened measures in line with the extension of the enhanced community quarantine until August 7 and in preparation for the possible impact of the Delta variant. Mayor Jerry Treñas ordered the limiting of movement to accessing goods and services for work in specified establishments for inoculation of COVID-19 vaccines and other permitted activities. Iloilo Governor Arthur Defensor Jr. also ordered additional COVID-19 surge management measures under ECQ. He also ordered the hospital to be ready to elevate their COVID-19 dedicated beds from 50% to 70% of their total capacity. The city and province of Iloilo have recorded 1 Delta variant case each. In Negros Oriental, the Provincial Health Office appealed to residents to strengthen their protection against the more transmissible Delta variant despite a continuing decline in infections in the province. Assistant Provincial Health Officer Dr. Leland Estacion noted that 2 cases of virus strain were reported in neighboring Samboan, Cebu. Estacion said she will be also asking the IATF in a meeting on Wednesday regarding stricter border control. In General Santos City, the local government will open soon more treatment and isolation beds for COVID-19 patients. Dr. Ryan Aplicador, chief of the Dr. P. Royeca Hospital, said preparation are underway for the operation of the newly completed 27-bed temporary treatment and monitoring facility at the hospital compound. The facility will mainly cater to COVID-19 patients. Meanwhile, the Sangguniang Panglunsod has approved the supplemental funding of around 100 million pesos that the hospital requested for COVID-19 response. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Laid Kabagani.
The Philippine National Police announced the mandatory use of body-worn cameras or alternative recording devices during police operations. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said the Directorate for Operations has set protocols for using the BWCS or ARDS in executing search and arrest warrants as well as warrantless arrests. Eleazar also pointed out that the gadgets are never to be turned off at any time while an operation is ongoing or as far as it is practicable. Police operatives are also told to submit a copy of the video to the court along with a warrant and an affidavit attesting to the facts and authenticity of the recording. The PNP has so far distributed nearly 2,700 BWCS to around 171 police stations and units nationwide. Up next, some 3,500 distressed Filipinos return home through repatriation flights funded by the government. And government agencies adopt a skeleton workforce amid the enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila starting August 6. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Over 3,500 distressed Filipinos were sent home as of July 31 through the Assistance to Nationals Fund of the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA. The distressed Filipinos from the United Arab Emirates were repatriated through 9 government-funded flights since the pandemic started. The most recent flight on July 31st sent home some 374 repatriates, including 78 pregnant women. They received $200 as reintegration assistance and will undergo a mandatory 14-day facility-based quarantine. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sara Lu Ariola acknowledged the efforts of DFA posts overseas, the assistance of other government agencies, as well as the special commercial repatriation or bayanihan flights. They expect to bring home most stranded Filipinos from the UAE by the end of August. Several government agencies are adjusting their working hours as Metro Manila goes into enhanced community quarantine, or ECQ. The Department of Justice announced it will operate under flexible working arrangement during ECQ from August 6 to 20. Secretary Menardo Guevara said, unless Malacanang orders otherwise, all DOJ personnel will work from home during the ECQ, except for a skeleton staff to man the front line to receive documents. Meanwhile, the Commission on Elections is suspending voter registration in the National Capital Region once ECQ begins. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez encouraged the public to register in the remaining days before the start of the ECQ. Bureau of Immigration offices in Metro Manila will also operate with skeleton forces and under shortened working hours starting August 6 when the ECQ takes effect. Commissioner Jaime Morente said the BI main office in Intramuros, Manila, and its satellite and extension offices in the region will maintain a workforce of at least 30%, but not more than 50% of their operational capacity. He added that beginning Friday, these offices shall begin operating on shortened working hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. only. The Philippine Statistics Authority in Negros Oriental is now accommodating companies and other institutions registering to the Philippine Identification System, or PhilSys. Registration sold down after the province was placed under modified enhanced community quarantine. The PSA recently catered to some institutions such as the DCCCO Multipurpose Cooperative and the Diocese of Dumaguete. If a request is made, they will require at least 50 people at one venue for registration, provided they can present the necessary credentials like a government identification card. As of July 31, about 593,000 individuals have signed up for the National Identification Program. Former rebels and members of communist organizations in Lanao del Norte and Bukidnon have received livelihood programs through government initiatives. On Tuesday, the 4th Mechanized Infantry Battalion based in Baloi, Lanao del Norte, started a pinakurat vinegar production project for former rebels. Pinakurat vinegar is made from tuba or coconut fragmented sap and blended with local chili labuyo. Lieutenant Colonel Romel Pereña, 4th Mech Commanding Officer, said the ex-rebels would institutionalize sukang kalasag production, hoping they will pursue the livelihood after their enrollment to the ECLIP. In Bukidnon, the Municipal Agriculture Office, or Kalagasan, and the 88th Infantry Battalion handed over hybrid corn seeds and fertilizer to 28 former members of underground organizations. Dr. Anita Makabugto, the Municipal Agriculturist Officer, said the beneficiaries can use the farm inputs for their livelihood and share knowledge on farming with their peers. The recipients are mostly residents of Sitio Mainaga, Barangay Iba, one of the strongholds of communist rebels. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The Philippines gets 3 million doses of Moderna donated by the United States. These jabs will be allotted to indigents as the country doubles its efforts to speed up vaccination against COVID-19. No need to worry, Malacanang allays fears of elderly persons hesitating to get the COVID-19 jab, saying getting vaccinated will increase their chances of surviving the pandemic. Aid on the way, the government will shell out some 13 billion pesos from the savings of agencies and offices for the grant of financial aid to some 10.7 million Metro Manila residents to be affected by the enhanced community quarantine. And the hope for more medals for the country remains alive as Marcial and Paalam both advanced to the semifinals of their respective divisions in the Tokyo Olympics. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe, everyone.